Hi there. Did you know that there is one man who is a perfect father? Join me as we explore who he is and how that plays out.
It's a very commercial thing, so it doesn't really worry me at all.
Right.
As far as I'm concerned, every day's Father's Day.
I guess it's quite important. You've only got one dad. Usually I try doing milking for him in the morning on Father's Day.
No, I don't like my father.
My father means everything to me. I've lived with him for most of my life.
I think it's quite important. I usually try and spend the day with Dad, or if I for some reason can't get to see him, then I always call him and make sure he's having a good day, or just catch up with him, see how things are going.
So welcome to our first of two talks for Father's Day, a little mini-series called Fathers Who Step Up. And so today I would like to share with you just a few thoughts from my own experience and from what the Bible has to say on this incredibly important topic of fatherhood. So I'm a father of four sons that were all born in the 80s. They were born close together, and today they are all married, and three of them have children. So I have now got nearly 10 grandchildren, so I'm a very blessed man. But before I get into the series, I just do want to talk to any of you who are single mums raising up your children. And I want to give a shout out to you because you're doing an awesome job. I want you to know from an old guy now who's done the parenting stuff, you're doing an awesome job and you're doing it on your own, and we want to congratulate you and we want to cheer you on. And that is in the background of what we're saying here over these next 2 weeks. Okay, so let's just talk about this perfect father that I referenced a moment ago. Who is he? Well, of course, he's the God of all creation, the God of the universe, the God of the Bible. It's very clear from Genesis right through to Revelation, to the end of the Bible, that he is our Father. And I referenced that actually a couple of weeks ago. And he is a good Father. Actually, he's a very, very good Father. I understand that when you hear the word, some of you who are listening here today, when you hear the word Father, it may not conjure up good thoughts. In fact, it may conjure up pretty sad thoughts, negative thoughts, angry thoughts. Look, I understand that because, oh my goodness, so many people have not had a particularly happy experience with their natural fathers or their biological fathers. But today, just for these few moments, I would like to encourage you to think your best thoughts of what would a perfect father, what would a very, very good father look like? What would that feel like? And words like this hopefully would come to mind. Just our best thoughts at this moment would be words like good, kind, generous, patient, loving, not angry. Certainly not angry as a posture, forgiving, compassionate. Those are the words, those are the adjectives, if you wish, the describing words that should come to mind when we think of an excellent father, a very, very good father. And actually, it's interesting, the Bible references this in a number of places, but I want to take a very popular couple of verses that we find in the Gospel of John, where Jesus refers to himself as a good shepherd and says it, and you might like to read the whole of this chapter, which actually makes for very good reading, John chapter 10. Jesus said, and keep in mind, Jesus reflects the very personality, the very character of God. He is actually God. It's a complex idea, but he is God on the earth. I am, he says, the good shepherd. The good shepherd sacrifices his life for the sheep. Now, here are two highlighted words here that immediately give us an insight to who we're talking about. Jesus said, I'm the good shepherd. Shepherds in the day in which he wrote this, the day in which this was written, were different to today's farmers. Sheep farms were, if you wish, perhaps 200 sheep. They were generally known by name. Each sheep was valuable and sometimes even hand-reared. So they were of considerable value to the shepherd. And the good shepherd, the good farmer, if you wish, sacrifices his life for the sheep. It's not a notion that no farmer would do that for a sheep today. But back then, 2,000 years ago when this was written, oh yes, absolutely, a farmer would do exactly that. This passage sets up the hired hand or the employee of the farm hand, with the good shepherd. And so it's referred to here as a hired hand. So a hired hand, an employee, will run when he sees a wolf coming, when he sees danger coming. He will abandon the sheep because they don't belong to him, because he isn't their shepherd. He's not their owner. He's not the one who's invested in the sheep. And so the wolf attacks them and scatters the flock. The hired hand runs away because he's working only for money and doesn't really care for the sheep. Goes on, Jesus says, I am the good shepherd. I know my own sheep and they know me. Now that's a very interesting line that finishes off this little text. I am the good shepherd. I know my own sheep and they know me. It's an immediate insight again into the relationship that the shepherd, the Galilean shepherd, had with his 200 or so sheep. So that's the first point. What we see right here is that God is a good father, and that as human fathers, we who bear children can look to him and try and model some of those characteristics as we get on with our parenting task, as we step up to the fathering task. The second point that I'd like to make is this. Caring for your children is different from raising them. In truth, I haven't met a father, or for that matter, a mother, who is just downright negligent and abandons her child or children, or he does, and kind of doesn't care for them. I haven't met those people. I believe that there may be a few around, but we hear of that occasionally. But that's very rare. 99.9% of mums and dads who give birth to children love their children and they want to care for them. There is a difference between caring, however, for your children and raising them up. Caring is things like, looking after them, making sure they've got some clothes, some food, a warm bed, that they get to school and a decent education. And kind of caring, and then the sort of the caring posture would be, well, I'll do that. I'll provide. I'll be the provider as a father, but I'll leave the rest it'll happen. If I just provide that, everything else will turn out fine. Well, in truth, so much study has been done on child development and human development and child rearing practices. No, it doesn't quite work out that way. It's a jolly good start and it's really important. Don't get me wrong. Providing for them, caring for them is very important. However, and here's my probably key point for today, raising them is a different thing. Raising children is about a very intentional posture that seeks to train, develop, nurture, and guide our children to become healthy, functioning, and contributing members of society. And that's what we all want. Fathers, intuitively, they may not have those words particularly, but that intuitively is what they want. To raise children, it's about focus. It's about intentionality. So it's another whole level beyond caring. Proverbs 22 and verse 6, famous verse, often talked about in churches, goes like this. Train or direct your children onto the right path, and when they are older, they will not leave it. That captures the idea of raising your children. It's got that intentionality about it. It's got that focus. You're wanting to ensure that they are directed, guided, trained, developed. All of those words can fit right there, so that when they are older, that's the path that they will stay on. And this is not a particular, though this is a verse great verse in the Bible. It's actually true of all of life. So essentially, it means this. If you want to raise your child as a really good citizen, then do all of the things that we kind of here have referenced. You want to raise them as a Hindu, then add that into the mix, and they will become a really good Hindu. Or as a Muslim, or as a whatever. But for us as Christians, we take this very seriously. Say we want them to be also Christians as well as good contributing members of society. Then that's the path that we need to intentionally raise them up in. The Message translation puts it this way: point your kids in the right direction, and when they're old, they won't be lost. They'll stay on track, they'll stay on course. It's a really good way to summarize this idea of raising your children. It's tremendous responsibility, and fathers who step up, that's what they do. Let us pray. Father, thank you so much for the fact that you are our Father, and you are a very good Father. And we can learn so much about how to be a good father here in this life, at this day, at this moment, as we look at how you exercised your parenting responsibility, your fatherhood with the children of Israel, with the people of God in the New Testament. We thank you that we see so many wonderful illustrations of you as a good father. We want to be good fathers. We dedicate ourselves to that end once again here at Father's Day this year in 2018. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Right, Alan, so you've been talking about caring and raising kids and doing that well. And I was just wondering if you could give us a little bit more on the raising. So moving past the, what religion or faith you want people to have, and into some of the key things that would be good to remember to do, to model as we raise our kids.
So if I was to have answered that question when I was a dad in the trenches in the 80s and 90s, I would answer a little differently. Today, I would say without a doubt resilience. We need to help our children become resilient, because if you are resilient, which means you can bounce back from adversity, basically, it's simple definition, then you're going to set that child up for a much happier adult life, because adversities will happen. You only have to live for a few moments to realise that, and you will be emotionally, because resilience is about emotional capacity to bounce back. And of course, earlier this year we interviewed an expert on this, Catherine Burkett, and so people can go back and have a look at what resilience and the raising of children is all about. So that, which was a fabulous interview. The second thing I would say is help our kids to make good decisions.
That's a good one.
So not just default to what seems like decision making is a discipline, in my view. I think that good decision making is a discipline, and once you get sort of beyond sort of that once you're even in preschool, you're having to make decisions.
And sometimes very spontaneously.
Yeah, and they tend to be what is just immediately in front of you. But what is immediately in front of you is not necessarily the best call.
That's right.
You've got to look at, and one of the keys to good decision making is look at the alternatives, weigh up the alternatives. I've got a few options here. I should look at them all closely. And the more important the decision, the more important the consideration of the options are. So we need to help our children, because once they get into teen life, they've got decisions to make all the time. They've got to solve problems. And this solving problems actually brings decision making and resilience, I think. In one way, it brings it together. Because now, we all have some problems. Problems is a part of life, and you are having to get up and you have to solve the problem. In solving the problem, you're making a decision, and hopefully you're making a decision that's based from a resilient, emotional life.
And of course, with good resilience and learning how to make decisions, or good decisions, removes a huge percentage of stress off our lives.
Yes, it does. Yes, because if you have a default setting that isn't just taking what seems right, but you actually consider what is right. You are disciplined to step back and consider. You're going to make much better choices. You're set up to make better choices because your default setting is now, hold it, stop the bus. I don't have to make this decision right now. This can wait for a day or two. I can sleep on this.
Take some
and
time.
I'll tell you, sleeping on it is very helpful.
Absolutely. So now I want to throw you totally in the deep end, if
Sure.
that's okay. So you're a granddad.
Yeah.
You are now able to watch your kids parent. So I'm sure you're seeing a lot of things that have gone down the family line from you being parents, you and Jeanette, to your children. There'll be some good things and there'll be some bad things.
Yep, all of that.
Tell me about the good things.
So, look, one of the great delights of being an older dad and a granddad is to watch your son, and particularly when your sons are doing well. You know, you're kind of like, well, mums are going to do all right. You know, the girls are going to do all right. But when your sons, and that's all I had, I only had 4 sons, are doing well, you just feel like, I just feel so proud, you know what I mean? And I do actually tell them that. I say, particularly when it comes to Father's Day, which is coming up, you know, I say, I write them cards. I say, you know, you're darn good stuff, you know what I mean? But look, there is always some things that are going on, and the millennial kids, my kids are all millennials, and their wives do things differently. And sometimes, Jenny and we just, you know, eyes meet and we say, bite your tongue, say nothing. This is not the right time to say anything. It's different.
So tell me one thing that you did that you're now seeing one of your sons doing that's working really well.
So I think what I am delighted to see is that I have 3 sons that are fathers, and they are really trying to be present. I try to be present. The family dinner was important for me to come to. Mum, Jeanette would sometimes wait if she had to a little bit, but she said 6 o'clock, I would be at home at 6 o'clock. And then if I had to do something else later, fine. But that was very important. And I still believe that the family dinner time is such an important time for the family. That's where the day's stories are shared. That's where wisdom can be shared. That's where oral history can be passed down. There's so many benefits from the family dinner table, you know. I don't think 7 days a week, I'm not an advocate necessarily for that. We didn't do 7 days a week. It was rare that we probably could do that, but 5, the majority. Do you know what I mean? So I'm encouraged by that. What I'm struggling with a little bit is, so when I was raising my kids up, a child would touch something hot or would do something, or they were just defiant, Janine, defiant. Some children are defiant. We would do that. That doesn't happen.
No.
And I think, you know, the fastest lesson for this little one right now would be...
Just a little, yeah. Enough to stun them. Stun them. Not an outrageous fit of anger or a big hiding. No, just stop it. Yeah. And you can't do it.
And they don't do it.
No.
So, oh well, do some more talking then.
Yeah.
Time out then, go ahead, you know.
I've heard kids say a good smack, kids who are now adults now, say a good smack did me well.
It did me well, it never hurt me, I'm fine, you know. And the psychologists hate those responses.
They do, but it's very true. Thanks, Alan, that's great. It's now time for Faith Stories, and joining us today is Adum Tiiku, and she's from Ghana. She's been in New Zealand for 6 years, and she's a law student. Great to have you, Adum.
Thank you for having me, Janie. That's good to be here.
You're a law student.
I am.
That's awesome. So you're in your 3rd year.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And you're from Ghana. How long have you been here?
I've been here for 6 years.
Yeah. And you enjoying New Zealand?
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Missing your mum and dad?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, but it's good.
Cool. So you grew up in a Christian home.
I did.
When did you give your heart to Jesus, and what encouraged you to do that?
So I gave my heart to Jesus in 2004, around 8 or 9 years, I'm not too sure. I stayed home with my auntie one time. We didn't go to church. It was a Sunday morning, and she talked about salvation. She was like, oh, we're home, I'll just tell you about God. And I was like, oh yeah, right. I mean, I was brought up in a Christian home. So she talked about salvation, and I cannot remember what she said, but I remember her singing a song and the lyrics were like, I have decided to follow Jesus, no turning back. And I just looked at her and I was like, wow, this woman is very happy. Like, I don't know. She looked so happy, and the joy that she just had, I was like, I want to have that joy. And that's what prompted me to give my life to Jesus. And it was just from that time from thinking that I was brought up in a Christian home and it was all right, and to me realizing that she had that joy, I realized that accepting Jesus meant that having a relationship with him, and that was very
awesome. So even though you grew up in a Christian home, that didn't make you a Christian?
No, it didn't. It didn't make me a Christian at all.
And did you receive the joy?
I did. It's been amazing. I can't even begin. Like, if I begin to tell you about what God has done and the joy that I have, I don't think we'll finish today.
Well, now I'm just a little bit inquisitive. Can you give me just a few things that God has done since you gave your life to him?
From like, one thing that I think is just makes me happy is just at uni, sometimes I've got friends who are not Christian, and they get stressed out about things, and I'm like, they ask me, one of my friends like recently asked me, she's like, how do you not get stressed when we have assignments? And I was like, because I've got Jesus. And they're like, oh, okay. And so that's one of the things, like, of course it gets harder with uni and all of that, but just remembering every day that I've got God, and it's not a lie. Like, when you say it, people think, oh, what's that, you're just lying, but it's actually true. Like, if you've got God, the joy, and you don't think about, you're always positive, you don't think about the negative, even if life isn't going the way that you want. So
there is a way to have peace and joy in the midst of
trouble,
stressful times.
Yes, absolutely.
So I've known you for a few years, and there's probably more challenges than I know about. But one I do know about, that when you were first here, you didn't, or you were at school, and then you struggled to work out where you were going to go in life and what you were going to do. Was that one of the major challenges for you? Yeah,
it was a big change for me. Because it was more of, I'd finished uni and I finished high school. I'd passed and I'd got into uni, but I couldn't go to uni because I couldn't get my student loan approved, because I'd just been in the country for about a year or so. Those years were not very good for me. It was very stressful, very I think about, oh, my friends are in school right now. But one time I just sat in my room and I prayed to God. I was like, God, like, why am I going through this? And he just let me know that it was all right. And through people that I'd spoken to, through friends that I'd made, like Tamsin, your daughter, all of those people just was like, God just placed them in my life at that time, So that was just, life wasn't going as I had planned, but God made a better way for me by bringing me great friends, bringing me good people in my life. And when I went to uni, I think it was the time that I was meant to go to uni, because my perception about school and studying changed.
Wow.
Yeah, it did change.
So you'd never have thought of that.
No.
So when there's a hold up, there's a reason.
There is a reason.
Yeah.
I think that if I'd gone to uni right out of high school, I probably would have dropped out the first year. I'm not even joking.
Yeah, so you weren't quite ready for it. So in that kind of couple of years where you weren't sure where you were going, you felt you had no purpose or reason and wondered whether you should go home.
Yeah, definitely. I was like, well, what am I even doing here? What's the point? You know, and you do question God because you're a human being. That's what, you're like, what's the point? But through life group and things like coming together with a group of girls who would encourage ourselves, and just like talk about God all the time, just made a big difference, made a really big difference. And my relationship with God during those 2 years, like, it just went to a different level.
Amazing.
Yeah. I actually spent more time with God than I had previously during that time.
And what does spending time with God do for you?
for me, spending time with God is just, how do I even explain that? It's
And what do you do to spend time with God, and what does it do for you?
My favorite thing on the planet is to sing worship to God. I do talk to God, but I love to worship God. It's my favorite. I call it, it's me and God's thing. It's just, it's my way of like, I just worship God, and through singing it, I just let him know that I appreciate him.
Yeah.
And so for me, when I do, it takes me to a whole different level. Sometimes I just, after work, go to my room and just like sing and sing, and my family's like, wonder what she's doing there. But yeah, it takes me to this level where it's just incredible. And after doing that, it's like you see everything differently. I don't know how to explain that properly, but you just look at things and you're like, oh, that's beautiful.
You've got a God perspective.
Yeah, like that's right. That's the word I'm looking for.
And when we're looking at any of our struggles, our issues, or even things that are going right, and you've spent time with God, the stress goes away, the pressures go away. You can see things in a better perspective.
That's true. You don't even think about stress. Honestly, if you're worshiping God in your own little quiet place, you don't. I don't think about uni stuff, to be honest.
But spending time with him helps you with your
uni?
It
does. It helps me. It gets my mind clear, I think. It gets me in a better headspace. Like, I get yesterday, good example. Yesterday, after classes, I thought, I'd stay back and study. So while in the library, I was like, studying. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to listen to some Christian music while I study. I don't usually listen to songs when I study because I end up singing and forgetting that I have to study.
I would too.
So I put on my earphones and I started listening to a song called So Will I by Hillsong.
Yeah.
And I was just listening to the song, and I kid you not, I was struggling to understand something, and it made sense, and I was like, I'm going home. I understand this, I'm going home. So I was like, I wrote down everything, and I was like, wow, this is crazy. So I just packed myself, I was like, I understand this. I texted my friends like, you know what, I think I understand the assignment now, no need to worry. And she was like,
wow.
Do you? And I was like, yeah, I can explain it to you tomorrow. She's like, okay.
Isn't that cool?
It's so cool. I was like, and I'm still like, in my head, I'm like, I understand this assignment. Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes it's so hard. Thank you so much for sharing that. That is really awesome.
That's fine. I love to share stuff like that.
Thanks, Adam.
You're welcome.
Okay, so just coming to the end of the show now, and we'd like to suggest that you listen to this song. It's very cool, and it fits in with our theme about fathers. So this one's called Daddy by Abby Anderson, and it's had over 17,000 views. And I'm just going to read you a few lines. And this is written, obviously, a young person talking about the man she wants to marry. And so this is what she's saying, and she's talking to her father. You respect Mama, and he respects me. You always keep your word. You're always honest, and so is he. And just like you, Dad, he's forgiving, and he knows my worth. Knows me for who I am. He's everything you believe I deserve. Great song, so enjoy listening to that one. Now, if you'd like to contact us, let us know your thoughts about the program, how you've been encouraged, please do. The emails are on the screen in a few seconds, and we look forward to catching up with you next week. See you later.